going on, guys? Today I was thinking that we could go through my track Trojan out on Puresa Records. It was a shared EP between myself and 1TK. Now, in this track, what I did was I actually sampled this TV show from 1998. I believe it was 1998, and it's called ReBoot. It was one of the first animated series that was available on TV, and it won a bunch of awards in Canada. Just a little backstory to the sample, and I have the episode right here that I sampled. So, it's really just from here till around here-ish.
You've won and proven yourself worthy of my advice. What did you need?
Well, Megabyte has asked me to do him a favor.
Megabyte. My advice is to stay away from him. The command comm has tried to erase him at every upgrade, but he's a very clever virus.
Yeah, I'm finding that out.
He has bad files.
So that's basically the clip that I sampled. And what I did with that is I brought in FL Studio and I created a bunch of little samples out of that clip. So I just chopped it up a bunch and then tried to create new samples with the general idea basically just being a palette that I could reach to while creating this record. So if I go to the channel rack here and let's put that on unsorted, and these right here, so let's take a listen to these. This one's actually muted right now. There we go. And those are the sounds that I came up with, or that I extracted from the original sample. They all got a little bit of processing on them to help them fit in the mix. So those all came from the show. And another thing I did with that sample is I took the long clip that I recorded and I threw it in the SliceX plugin, and I ran this little script on it. Just clicking play to end here. And what that does is every time I hit one of the chops, it won't stop at the next chop, and it'll actually just run through the whole sample. And I find I get a lot of happy accidents that way, and that's one of the ways that I'll try and manipulate samples while I'm writing on a track. I find I can get some cool things like that. But we'll get into that section in a little bit, but I figure we'll probably start off here with the drums. So if I extend this out and I play the drums, this is what they sound like. So these drums were a little bit inspired by the LB Buck and Bury record, or just LB in general, to be honest. He kind of has this, he's done this drum a bit, and I guess it's kind of like early dubstep, early two-step sort of patterns, but that was the inspiration for it. So there's not too much going on here. We just have a kick, so sounds like this. We've just like shortened the sample a little bit. Nothing going on in the velocity. Like, it's just really static kick. And then what we also have is this pattern, which has all the other drums. So the hats and the claps, or the snares, I should say. There's a clap layer in here. So let's take a quick listen to this. And then we have this tops loop that I've chopped up a little bit to fit within the groove. So I'll just take a quick listen to this. I'm sorry, here we go. And lastly, we have this shaker that I've created, which is just a closed hat. And you can see here that the attack of the shaker is modulating, and I have it pitched down a little bit too. And that's how it sounds. And if I turn that off, it'll just sound a lot more static. So that's with it off. I'm just using the Fruity P controller for this with a bit of LFO. And if you're wondering how I got those two things connected, if I come back in here, I've just right-clicked the attack and I have a link to controller on here. And in this internal controller area, I've just chose the P controller LFO. And it tells me right here which P controller it would be, because if I had a bunch of instances of it, they would all show up in this column. So you just have to choose the right one. So those are the drums in a nutshell. Like, there's not too much going on there. A little bit of mixing happening on them. Nothing too much on the individual channels, but in the groups there's a bit going on. So, you know, got a little EQ on here, mag, a little bit of reverb. It's all on the snare. Then we're clipping the snare, and just a fruity balance to bring the level back to where I want it. And in the drum bus we have another mag EQ. We have the destructor, a little fruity delay. And I'm actually using this as an effects unit, so I've turned off any echoing that's gonna happen, and I've really just used this sample rate and bit crushing section here, and I've just degraded the overall sound of the drums just to make it, you know, glue together a bit more and fit the vibe of what I was going for. A bit of distortion from the Fruity Wave Shaper, nothing too crazy. A bit of multi-band compression here just to tame everything, and then I think we're just clipping the whole bus here just by a little bit, so it's not coming in too hot to the pre-master. Moving on from the drums, we got the melody aspect here. So if I come over to this part and I mute this, and I turn this on, it should sound like this. So we're just listening to this one section here. And these sounds came from the ReBoot show that I sampled. We have this sound here, and then we have this one as well. This one, I think I've played it down an octave on the C. So together they sound like this. But what I did after is I muted that. Well, I played both of them. I resampled it, so I played them both together, and I ran Tantra on it, and we got this texture that's below. I'm just gonna mute that now because I ended up turning it off when the texture plays, just because it was a little bit too much. But this is the texture we got out of it by resampling it through Tantra. And then together they sound like this. And you'll hear me say this a lot, but I really love the idea of resampling sounds that already exist within the project to try to create new sounds. And the reason I like to do that is because if you make a new texture or a new sound out of something that already exists within the project, the chances of it working within the project are going to be a lot greater, right? So that's kind of the way that I do it. And you know, a lot of the time you need to kind of fill out the record, and that would be my best tip to get that done would just be to resample things and see what kind of textures, see how much you could really squeeze out of a sound before you try to add in another one. But this is something I generally do near the end of the production. I do like to, you know, write as much as I can before I start adding the textures and the resampling. So yeah, I believe it was just a bit of tantra on that. Yeah, I think I might have run it through the bus here. I probably deleted tantra now. I generally delete that plugin after I use it, just 'cause it's a bit of a CPU hog, but yeah, that's definitely how I got the texture. But what really brings this track together is in the bass, because I did a lot of resampling and texturizing within this group. So we'll just take a listen to the main these automation clips on the main bass pattern, and then we'll go through this section, these areas here where I've done a lot of resampling of the basically new versions of this stuff here, and kind of see how we've filled out the record a bit more. So let's take a listen to that now. Excuse me. So, you know, that bass pattern isn't too crazy, but we'll go through it quickly here. I'll just open this up. So it's like a mix of the 3x oscillator and a sample for the respace. So the respace sounds like, you know, like a Reese does. That's that. Then we've created a patch with the 3x oscillator, and I've duplicated that across and just got little different variations of it that I've used to, you know, piece the whole pattern together. So you see, these three are all the same sound. And they're all just working on a different timing from the LFO in the envelope. And in this one, I can see just from looking at it that I've used the pitch slider. So when you use an FL Studio instrument or the sampler within FL, you get to use some extra tools within the piano roll, and one of those being this slide function here. And what that does is, if you apply a slide note, it's essentially controlling a pitch glide. So it's going to control to the note that you put it on. It's just like a really accurate way to get pitch automation, because you can, you know, instead of you moving up and down and guessing what note you're going to end up on the pitch glide, it's really easy. So we're going to start at F. I also want it to end on F, so it's going to go down 2 full octaves, and it's going to run for half a bar's worth of time. The pitch glide will, and then the actual sound itself is going to go for about, you know, just over 3/4 of the bar. So hopefully that makes sense. So it's pitching down till about here, and then it's just playing from here on. So this part to this, from halfway to here, it's playing at this pitch. Hopefully that makes sense. I just want to try to be as clear as possible on exactly what's happening. So moving on from there, we also have this other sound under the main bass patch, and this is kind of filling in some of the gaps. And it's just a sub, And then it's a sub with some distortion, so a sine wave, little distortion on there. I believe it's just it's just a little destructor. Nothing too crazy on here. And then a little bit further into the drop, we have the distortion automating a bit on this clip, so that's just to give it some more variation, keep things fresh. And then we also have another destructor happening here as well, so, and then without that, it's just not going to be distorted. This, and that's just keeping it fresh. So then what I've done is I have all this routed to this bass bus here. Every bass sound over here is all routed to this area here. And what I did at this point is I added a thing of an instance of Tantra, and I basically recorded a take of it playing. So I just let the drop play with Tantra over top of it with an instance of Edison underneath Tantra, and I've just recorded everything that was happening from Tantra. So I've got all these really cool textures, and you'll listen to the exact clip. So if I just take that, bring it down here, I'll just extend the clip out a bit, and then we'll just solo this, and you can just take a quick listen to some of the bass textures we got. Oh, made a little by accident. But yeah, and it's not one preset that, that's gotten me these textures. What I've done is when I was on Tantra, as it was recording, I would just hit I'll just pull up Tantra and show you. So where is that? It's right here. So I'm hitting this dice button, and every time I click this, it's giving me something fresh. And as that's playing, I'm just clicking this, maybe rhythmically, so I'm clicking it on time, so it'll change when I feel like something should change within the pattern. And then I'll either click this, or I'll choose the playback speed, and each one of these things are going to give me a new texture. And the idea is not to get it completely right. Like really what the idea is to have this long clip and then kind of take the pieces that I like from it and see if there's anything else I can do with this clip. So I'll try to repurpose it. So if I go back to this bass bus, or the section here that holds all the bass, like you can see I have the clip here, but it's muted. But in some parts it's not muted. So I'm using the parts that matter, and then I'm also running a little bit of processing on those as well, because because it's a bass layer. It came with a lot of sub frequencies, so I had to roll those off since I knew it was going to layer on top of the bass. So now if I we'll go over here. I'm using a little bit more of it, but if we take a listen to those textures alongside the bass, we get a good idea of what that's doing. So and so like it's gonna work rhythmically with it as well, because it literally is it's the same notes, it's the same pattern, right? It's just like a modulated, manipulated version of it that we've rolled off and added a bit more processing on. So like hypothetically it should sit over top of the bass pretty much perfectly. And like I mentioned before, like we're just trying to squeeze out more and more from the record, and that's another thing that helps, right? If things are rhythmically the same as other elements, and it's going to layer and be more compatible. So going into the bass more, I've basically just kind of went in here and highlighted little bits and pieces of the bass, and then I would hit disc record, or I would consolidate the exact layer. So, for example, I'll come on here and I'll consolidate the time selection, and we'll make a new version of it. And now I have this new piece of audio here, right? And this is muted, or I don't think it was muted before. I think it might just mute it by default after you do that. But I'm just basically creating audio out of the MIDI notes, and that's another thing that I like to do to resample further, and because I can do other things with this, right? Like I can time stretch a MIDI note, but it's a little easier to do it with audio, and I just find that when you do that, then it's a little bit more like baked in, like the processing that you've added, which could be good or it could be bad, but it helps you stay committed to it and helps you, moving forward on writing, not getting too stuck in edit zone where you just keep tweaking shit. Like we don't need that neither. But I want to solo this quickly. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's just this part. Yeah, it is. So, basically I've just kind of gone through here and done little bits of that, and maybe stretched it, or done other things. If I stretch this now, play them at the same time. That has a completely different tone than the original, and it's a little easier to get what I'm after. We're just looking to create variations of what we already have. So I keep saying that, but I just want to like really nail that in. That's what I'm going for. So continuing on, there's a few different pieces that we've done here. So we got this section. And yeah, I mean, this is like kind of like the final touch sort of stuff. Like I had this bass, the MIDI patterns spread across when I made the arrangement, and then what I did after is I just kind of looked at each part of the track and just tried to do like I try to experiment with it a little bit to squeeze a bit more out, and that's where I've gotten where the resamplings come from. And I've used those. I've used those at the start of the track too, just to build some tension. So if I play the track from this "Get Interested" part here that I've this time marker that I've added, we'll take a listen to that. So we're using those textures and other places of the track too, filling it out, also teasing like what's happening. Like there's so many different ways to utilize the resampling. But that's pretty much it for the bass. So we'll close that up, and we'll created me this because I resampled. Yeah, whatever. We'll move on to the vocals. And these came from the original sample, the original YouTube clip. So we got this part. So that's just a little piece that I've pitched down and created a loop out of across here. And here I've added just a little fade on it, so like it opens up a little bit. Yeah, so if we take a look at this part in the vocals, Is basically the whole clip that I've added into SliceX, and then I've added the script on it, so it'll just make a bunch of different cuts, and then from whatever region that I choose on the keyboard, it'll play the rest of the sample starting from where I clicked it. So, I've just sat here and kind of, while it was playing, played different notes and see what I could come up with. And those are these are two chops that I came up with. So we got this one. And there's some reverb and delay on here as well. So if I just remove all the effects, it's quite dry.
Every upgrade is a very clever virus. He's a very has tried to erase him.
And yeah, let's put the effects back on there before I forget. And we also have this section over here where we play out the whole sample and we automate some very short delay timing, kind of giving this like robotic effect. So
what is this favor he wants?
You won't say?
I see. There is an old
you see it right here.
file that says you should keep your friends close and your enemies even closer.
So that's how I've done that. And what I did here is I just opened up the delay and I turned off tempo sync. And that allows it to, kind of get in to like real tight delay timing, real short fractions. And yeah, that's pretty much how we did that. We just, automated that. I think I connected it to one of my MIDI pots here and I just moved it on the fly, which is why it's in an event instead of an automation clip like where's an automation clip? It doesn't matter. Like, instead of it looking like this. Where's the thing I'm looking for? Oh, it's because it's a MIDI clip. This is what I was looking for. Like that. Like, it doesn't look like this. It looks a little different. Yeah, I don't do this too often. I find it's a bit of a pain in the ass, but I knew it was going to be just like the one time I was doing it, so I didn't care, and it was faster. And I think at this point I was just trying to finish up the record. And this record did take me a while. The initial idea was very quick. Like, I think I made it in a night, really, like getting the whole idea of the tune, and it didn't like veer far from that at all. But just like, building it out, getting all the right sounds, filling it up, making it interesting. That's what took a little while. Moving on in the vocals though, we also have this part here. Actually, I don't think it's that one, is it?
Yeah, funny.
Yeah, just various chops we've all done from that same thing, but there's a part where I've done a time stretch as well. I'm just kind of looking for that quickly. But I know where it is on here, so I'll just show it to you anyway, because it does happen. If I open up this Amigo, I've just resampled the same clip into the Amigo, and then put on the stretch section here, made the length 565%. So now if we take a listen to that, I don't know why I can't find that in here. It's like it's here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. Just added it to the wrong group. Let's fix that now. So this is the sound effects section here, and this is where most of the samples that I created at the start of the video from the original YouTube clip kind of come in and have their place in the record. I felt like these really had good textures, and so this is the sound effects area right here, and this is where the samples that I took from the original source really play their part in the track. When I at the very start was making different samples out of the original sounds. A lot of them ended up just being sound effects that I used for textures throughout the record to kind of keep the cohesiveness, and I feel like it worked really well. So we'll just take a quick listen to how that sounds. And some of these clips are the exact same. So like a lot of the time I'll make one pattern at the very start, and then I'll just take like the MIDI clip and I'll just chop like the parts that I need. So, you know, I want another version of that somewhere, and so I'll just like chop it so I get that piece, and I'll like spread it around. It's a bit of a messy way to do things, but I just like to work quick, so I try to get as many ideas as I can out all at once. And you know, if that's the most efficient way for me to do that, then that's the way I'm going to approach it. But going back to these sounds, so one of them I wanted to take a look at was this one here, because this was an interesting one and I thought this one was really cool. So if I just take a quick listen to the sound raw, without any processing on it, or you know, without the things that I've changed in the sampler, if I copy this and get rid of it, the start times change as well, but it won't make a difference. It's just a little one shot. There's a bit of delay on it. So I've added a crossfade on here, which basically loops the sample. So now it's looped, and I've gone on here, and like I said earlier, one of the cool things about using the FL Studio sampler or the instruments is that you get use of this slide button here, so you can use a slide note. So we have this pitching down 2 octaves, and while it's doing that, it's slowing down the sample, because every time you pitch something up, it speeds it up, unless you have a time stretch algorithm on it. And I don't on this, so when it pitches down, it's extending the sample as well, so it's giving this really cool sound. And let's listen to it again. So it's almost like a downshifter in a way, and I think that's the way that I've used it in the track. So it's more of like a transitional element. So I just play everything. Yeah, some other effects that I used from the sound palette were in here. And if I just want to take a quick listen to this, we got this part. And then we also have these as well. So that's just playing on every other bar, I think, every other beat. This one here. And then this one I'm pitching it up and down to get a different sound. So I'll just take a listen to this pattern here quickly. Exact same sound, and like I mentioned before, it's pitching down or it's pitching up, it's gonna make it play faster, slower, and it's gonna give a different sound to it. So you know, other than that, we have, you know, just various little samples that I've pulled in from my library or Splice. I think I was on Splice a little bit for this track too, so just like reverse crash and, you know, crash down. Just filling it up. We're just filling up the record, making everything sound nice and full, nice and good. And these effects also play in really nicely with these bass textures, excuse me, that I created a little bit earlier. Just, you know, all together, I feel like it just all really works well together. And yeah, that was the end result. So yeah, like that's pretty much the whole tune. I mean, in terms of writing anyway, you know, to be honest with you, I can't say this track was like my favorite mix down I've ever done. Like I spent a lot of time on it. I kind of just got, you know, so used to listening to it, but now that it's, you know, I've had a chance to like listen back to it, I probably would have made some different mixing decisions. But like, yeah, this that's the track. This is that's Trojan. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that video, or like you learned something.